Debuts, one from Amber Eye off their album Along for the Ride, MTV Suburbia, and the other one from Written by Wolves.
All right, welcome to Freethinker Radio. If you didn't hear that, Micah was just checking you in. We had two new songs. Who were we listening to, Micah?
The first was Amber Eye off of Along for the Ride, and the second was another debut from Written by Wolves. So that's off their new album Secrets. That actually isn't dropping till November 6th out there. So
cool.
We're happy to have that here, and happy to be here on KPFT Houston 90.1.
Feels good to be here.
It does indeed. 100,000 watts of power, blasting the music out across the Gulf Coast. Ready to talk about news, events, and all kinds of stuff. It's
getting cold, man.
It is getting cold, and Johnny's going to get cold. I saw Johnny was at a hecka party this weekend. We're not even there yet. It's like I want to call it the weekend already just from Halloween last night.
I'll tell you what, it felt like the weekend until I woke up late for work today.
Well, I saw some of your late for work posts and I might get there on time, and also how great the party was. So I kind of connected the dots on that one and figured it was good.
I think a lot of Houston's probably in the same boat as me. So if you went to work today despite your hangover, I salute you.
Word, I needed a salute. Actually, I didn't have a hangover, but I did make it. I don't know if it was just because the last 2 weekends I was busy that somehow I just took it easy on Halloween. What about you? Hey, who are you?
Well, I want to jump on that sentiment of being busy. What's up, guys? It's Derrick. I've been gone a couple weeks, busy out there doing random things, and that we'll talk about next week. But I didn't do much for Halloween. Actually, I went out to an event to speak about things.
Did you speak about things that people will enjoy it?
Things that
what kind of things?
Things related to politics.
Well, how was the discussion received, and were people interested in things related to politics, or did they already have their minds made up?
I think that for those who don't know, there is an election coming up on Tuesday, and at this event,
early voting's ending.
Early voting ends today at 7 for those who want to participate in that way and express yourself in the vote in the race, and then your only chance to vote after that.
Or you could go
Tuesday.
Express yourself to voters.
Yeah, you could do both. I think all forms of expression,
yes,
barring violence towards other, are valid, and
Thank you, KPFT.
That means speaking on KPFT, doing YouTube videos, posting on social media, putting up art, things like that's all worthy expressions. And last night, I'll tell you this, it was a political event talking about the upcoming election. There was lots of discussion on that. But I also saw this really young, and by young I mean 10 years old and under, three brothers who are a rap group over off, actually I was kind of not far from you, Micah. We were over at I can't remember the venue's name, but it was
good.
It's a good. It was a cool little spot. They had some daiquiris. They had all this stuff going on, but they had these three young guys. They called themselves the G Boys, and they were dancing and performing, and like they played what they were calling their soon-to-be hit singles, and it was pretty cool. And their mom was their manager, and she was there with them, and also they were like rapping about like getting good grades and trying to get out of the ghetto and like do good things. So it was pretty cool. It was really cool.
There's something inspiring about seeing talented kids perform and just the openness that they have towards the world. It hasn't been stifled out yet. And so I think anytime you see that, there's something that can kind of give you some inspiration, even though like these kids can get out there and do this,
Oh yeah, they definitely, I think, could give anybody of any age something to think about in the area of confidence. These guys are pretty confident in their thing. But yeah, so that was cool of doing that. And then this weekend coming up, I'll be at Axelrad tomorrow. For those who hang out at Axelrad looks like there's going to be some fun stuff happening there. If anybody wants to come check that out, fun stuff. People, music, drinks, hanging out, chilling, talking about things that are important, stuff like that. And then other than that, I'm pretty interested in seeing how Tuesday's election goes. So,
yes.
And if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to call in at 713-526-5738. We got Johnny answering the phones over there.
What matters to you at the election? What should we care about? Do you care about these constitutional amendment things? I mean, do you care about a candidate? Oh, I got some news about some of these candidates. Oh, my goodness, so much stuff.
There's a lot going on in this election. I will say that. Not only just, of course, people will choose if they want a new mayor, if they want to keep Sylvester Turner, or if they want new city council members. As Micah said, there's constitutional amendments, there's the Texas State Constitution that are going on, and lots of things happening. So if you're into taking part in that way, playing a role in that way, which I'll tell you this, guys, just because this is kind of my thoughts, and maybe Mike, we can talk about this for a minute, you too, Johnny. So in 2015, which was the last city council general election, mayoral election, we had something like 200,000 people come out and vote, and there was more people who voted for the firefighters' raise, by the way, than voted in the current mayor. Out of 1 million registered voters. So we live in a city where there's 3 to 4 million people, depending on how you count, greater Houston area, etc. And only 1/4 of those people, about 1 million people, register to vote. And then out of that, only 1/5 of the people even bother to participate. So the more I think about it, the more I've been thinking about this whole race, and especially now, early voting's been going for 2 weeks. We mentioned today's the last day. Early voting numbers are much lower than they were in 2015. So despite the fact that some of these candidates are spending $7 million, $10 million, unless everybody's waiting for Election Day, which a lot of people do, it seems like the numbers are going to be even lower than they were last time, which would be they're definitely lower than they were at this point last election, I'll say that.
Well, this is interesting because the weather was pretty funky. We did get rain throughout this week, particularly at the end of the typical workday when people do go to early vote, so that could have been a factor. But then I think about how many candidates there are in the race and how that many of these candidates, let's call them underdog, or the ones that the lamestream media doesn't pay any attention to, those, whoever they are, those 7 or 8, those candidates probably got new people to go vote more than usual, and I think that's something to be considered too, because does this mean like the people who voted for the the mainstream, generic, lamestream candidates are just not showing out as much? I don't know. I guess, we'll see as the race goes on. But I do think that maybe neither of the front runners, as they're so seen, or any of the front runners really are attracting any energy. And that might be what it is. I did see the attack ads during the World Series. And I guess that was pretty interesting to see. You'd think it was a big deal with 12, maybe 13 candidates running, and millionaires running, and all these corporatist interests.
I wonder what the numbers are for the age groups of the people. Like, are the people that are turning 18? They're still is it getting less and less as older people, kind of die? Yeah, I guess die out. But you know what I'm saying?
It could be that.
Like it could be younger and younger people are losing their faith in the voting system, or they're just it used to be more of it's your, I guess, civic duty to vote.
And there's definitely
that sentiment is, at least in my younger circles, like I haven't heard people that are too gung-ho about that kind of thing. So
I feel the same way about that, and what I think is, in some ways it's positive, some ways it could be negative, because the numbers, we don't know where people are voting for, but we have seen the polling place numbers, so you can see, okay, hey, this part of town's voting a lot. And I've looked at the voters' rolls of the people who are registered, for example, the people who voted in every election the last 4 times, and the average age is 70 and 80, and every now and then you'll see a 38 or a 40, maybe even 50, but generally it's 60, 70, and 80 years old. So, and then if you look at the data for the polling places, this is the first year students at U of H and TSU can vote on campus, which is a historical thing for TSU being a historical black college. And there's been like 80 a day, something like that. Like maybe I think they've hit 500. Like they're just extremely low. And unfortunately, and I don't think this is the right approach, I was at an event where they were telling the students, what has been given can be taken away. So, if you don't act now, they're going to take this away from us. To try to, I guess, encourage them that way. That doesn't really seem to be working. But I agree with you. Like, I know that the only time I voted in an election, it wasn't local, it was presidential, of course, which is what most people pay attention to. To Micah's point about the media, we have had, how many months now of already discussion on the 2020 presidential election? Yet in Houston, the media believes, or they say this thing that, nobody starts paying attention to the election until after Labor Day. So people have been campaigning since January, February, March, April, May, but they don't even start really getting reporting till the last 6 weeks. And I bet if they spent more time getting to know all the candidates, talking about the issues like they do with the daily presidential stuff, there might be a general, an increase in interest. But I've still met people who are like, wait, you mean presidential? And they're like, no, there's an election next week. And some people still don't even know. And they're even registered voters who they're not paying attention. They don't hear about it. They're not tuned in. And, I mean, that's problematic because, unfortunately, downtown and City Hall, not far from where we are, these people are making decisions that take money out of your pockets and that do affect us. And I would say in a more daily direct way than Donald Trump does, and these other people that lots of people in the media are obsessed about. So yeah, in one hand, it's like you said, Johnny, maybe it's a generational thing. The older generations are
one thing
out.
I would say right now is the metrics don't bear that out in a sense, because the percentage of voters is in 2016 is at 55.5% of the voting age public. 54.9 before that, 58.2 before that, 55. So it's kind of in the same range. And all through the 20th century, it pretty much has been between 48 and 59%. I mean, within a 10% range throughout the last 100 years.
So just barely over half sometimes.
Yeah.
And in the presidential election 2016, we know that the largest block was people who didn't vote. So, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. How crazy it is that if we're about to elect a new mayor or city council and less than, a 10th of the population are even involved in that, should that be, I had somebody ask me, like, what if that happens? Like, is there a way to kind of have a do-over? Like, hey, if you can't get half the people in the city to,
well, there's always a way to have a do-over.
But you know what I mean? Because it's just crazy that this person,
but would it be a sanctioned do-over?
City council, etc., have all this power over a city of 4 million people, and they affect the world on a global stage. Houston's a global city, and only 200,000 people are even bothering to get them there, which means that either the vast majority of people don't care, they're not paying attention, or they're not interested, like you said, Micah.
Well, I think about it in a number of ways, because I think people, it's sad. Think about the times you just couldn't care about an office. I mean, it's so big, and there's so many little bureaucratic politicians in all these different levels of government, all the way down from the dog catcher to the president, all the way through there. And then you've got all these other bureaucrats that are just appointed. So I think, I was thinking about this in just how people feel about life. It can be overwhelming at times to even know. So sometimes they become maybe like interested in an issue, because then they're like, okay, I can support anybody who supports this main issue. And so I think it's difficult for people to navigate the political spectrum, because you see all kinds of different people out there, and it's really, you see, like, they make you, how do I put it? There's this big broadcaster or whatever you want to call it that says there's two camps. Right? Mm-hmm. And so I think, like, they fall into these cookie cutter camps by default almost, even if they don't fit exactly, just because we've been told forever that, the sky is blue and this is this way. And so, everybody is speaking about it in terms of this left-right dichotomy. And I don't believe that all of them neatly fit, but even our own minds by default, you're like, oh, they're this or they're that. And then we don't listen to these people anymore. We don't question anymore because we think we know everything about both, one's own side, if you want to say that, and the opposition. And boom, what are we? In a dichotomy again. One's own side and the opposition. And so I think that's what a lot of people fall into voting for. And then what happens if you're not in one of those? When you're around these people, they seem fervent, like almost. Have you ever been around someone who didn't share your religious views but wanted you to be in theirs?
It can be uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I think that's what a lot of people experience with politics, rather than, hey, you can have a voice insofar as, you have to do the work. They're not going to give it to you. They're not going to tell you who's all on
the other thing that's interesting about that aspect is when there's just the two camps, and each camp kind of has its own extreme pockets in it that holds like the most far view, whether it be right, left, or whatever. And then what happens is the politicians start playing to those extreme sides. So the people in the middle, they might not agree with everything that totes the line, but they could get cut out when the politicians are stuck, like, going towards, like, who's at the most extreme. I need to please those people because I already have their vote.
And I think another thing that's kind of fallout from that is that, so people, you're talking about university-age students, people in that demographic for the most part. I spent a long time in university, and I think a lot of people, they don't want to be identified as any of these extremes, so they default to the moderate position. But if they really thought about it, oftentimes they're not in accordance with moderate. They have a lot of things that they're dissatisfied with the status quo, but because they don't identify with the extremes of either of these two this dichotomy, they think they're moderate because they don't see themselves as an extremist. But in reality, are they approving everything that's going on? No, a lot of people are against the wars going on, against the inflation, against the police state, against these things. But when it comes down to it, most people aren't voting, and when they can, they don't know which candidates they can pick from. I think that's part of, the situation. And, why they do this, I think because it's overwhelming. It's very easy to be apathetic. Hey, we got a call. You want to take it, Derrick?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing while we get our caller on the line. Micah, about, the idea of putting people in two different camps. It's interesting because for those who don't know, local elections here in Houston, there are no parties. So when you go vote, if you haven't voted, there's no RD. I mean, it's
no, but they try to do it.
Cases.
I've heard so many interviews.
That's what I'm saying is, like, I've had people say, like, or I've seen people say to somebody, like, oh, well, which box are you, red or blue, this, that, and when you're like, oh, no, those things don't apply, they're like, yeah, but what are you? Like, they still can't get past the idea that somebody could be just talking about ideas or communicating. It has to be like, because they want to be able to know in a very quick way, no, you're my enemy, no, you're my friend. And, whether that's true or not, it's just the way they judge if you're on their team or not.
Do you think sports have anything to do with that?
The World Series happens to be going on at the same time. All right, who do we got on the line?
Yeah, man, my name is Jeremy. I'm actually just cruising through Houston. I live in San Marcos, Texas, but the things that y'all are talking about kind of applies across the board, right? Low voter turnout, same people kind of making decisions, slow change or no change. Anyway, I really called because y'all talked about the extremist on the political spectrum, and I kind of feel like that is how we have gotten to our current state as far as national politics go, is we've allowed the extremist politicians to have the megaphone, and unfortunately, maybe the people that could work across the aisle are not getting through the primaries, and it just seems like we're getting more and more extreme, and the pendulum is swinging from one to the other every 4 to 8 years, and it's just kind of sad. I can see why people are turned off by it, but I mean, it's kind of like a low IQ population in a way. I hate to sound so elitist with that, but we've got people that are not informed voting, and a lot of times voting against their own interests. And anyway, I don't know if if y'all got something to add. Or,
hey, well, we appreciate the call.
I think you brought up some very important points that we're going to reflect on and talk some more about.
Yeah, let me ask real quick. Do you vote? Yes or why?
I do vote, yes, sir.
Is that in local elections as well as presidential, or just on presidential elections?
No, well, I mean, when I was younger, it was only presidential. I mean, not that I'm that much older, but nowadays I vote in everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Well,
yeah.
We appreciate you taking an interest and appreciate the call. We're going to go to our next caller, brother. Thank you.
You bet.
That was a unique call. He's just passing through.
All kinds of listeners, all kinds of people. That's what we do here at KPFT on Freethinker Radio. And if you want to support us to make sure we can stay on the air, call in 713-526-5738. Consider making a donation. Visit kpft.org. Consider investing in Freethinker Radio, because that's what it really is. You're investing in journalism and shows like this where we can give you a voice on air.
News analysis, and yes, definitely. We have another caller. Oh, we've lost that caller.
No, we got him right here. It's
okay.
Adrian. We got Adrian.
All right, what's going on, Adrian?
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call. Just to mention the previous caller comments, there's so many people that are apathetic because they feel that they're powerless. But there is strength in numbers, and when people organize to vote out bad politicians, it benefits everyone. And if people are good with the status quo of the mess that is healthcare in this country, the mess and corruption that festers in Austin, in City Hall, in Washington, D.C., you're not helping solve the problem by not voting.
Well, we appreciate the call and definitely appreciate you sharing that. I want to say this, as somebody who is about to vote for the first time on the local level, I do not 100% agree with what you're saying there. I do agree with the general sentiment that being involved is definitely where we need to go, but I don't think that voting is the only, and I'm not saying you're saying it's the only way, but I don't think it's the only nor the most effective way for us to express ourselves or to be involved. I do think if you're going to take that role, focusing locally is where you could probably have the most effect, in some cases. But generally, I agree with your sentiment that we need people to be engaged, because as we said, it's not like people are not voting here in Houston and elsewhere and then going out and getting involved. They're just not doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's not going to achieve change.
I would suggest to all your listeners, that in your hand you hold the most powerful weapon in the world to expose injustice and incompetence in politics, and that anytime you come across an elected leader that you're not happy with, get in their face, challenge it, get it on video, post it to YouTube.
Yes, that I 100% agree with.
You just have
We're
to
with
shame
you.
people
Yes.
into doing the right thing.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That is absolutely true.
I want to say I know we got another call. I want to say one more thing on that. For one, I think all three of us were just like, yes, this is the kind of thing, you can search Houston Freethinkers and my name or Micah and find a fun time we had years ago with Henry Kissinger to the point of the gentleman that the strategy he just talked about. But someone mentioned, it was either us or one of the callers, about the kind of polarization. And I will tell you, I have noticed that typically seems to be a kind of national politics. But in this current race, the mayoral race, I've noticed it's definitely starting to happen here, where there's, like I said, people are like, you got to be one box or the other. You're either my enemy or you're my friend.
Because they can't evaluate it. That's the weird thing. Why can't they just hear what you're saying and then listen to it and decide if that's for them or not? That's the part that I'm not getting here, because I think everyone, even the callers, have kind of agreed with this point that it does fall into these dichotomies with a lot of people's minds. Like, they just want to put you in a box. Why can't they just analyze? Maybe the one caller that was passing through Houston had a point when he said it's like a dumbed down population or something. Why is it dumbed down? We have years and decades of what? State-ran education.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm not really understanding this. Also, when we talk about the voting in terms of, are you on my team, are you not on my team, and a dumbed down population, if you've gotten the people that are coming out just out of this, one, either to vote the evil they can't stand out or to vote the evil they want in, we're just going to end up with this same stuff that disenfranchises quite a bit of, what might even be the majority. And I think maybe one of the things to do is to figure out how to not allow you being a disenfranchised voter to make you not want to vote. How to not being a disenfranchised or a minority voter to make you realize that vote matters perhaps more than just going along with the lamestream. You know, maybe that some of that needs to be discussed, because I don't see a lot of that ever happening in civics classes or anything. And isn't that the whole point?
You're right about that. The education and the root of that, looking at that is important. One other point I'll add to the last caller, because he was talking about we have the most powerful tool in our hands. I'm assuming he was meaning smartphones, internet. And he's right.
AK-47. Oh,
but
sorry.
To some degree, and I was talking to a friend the other day about this. The age of the Wild West internet is kind of come to a close, because the age of
lockdown,
the internet being able to just things go viral and people searching and finding things on YouTube and Facebook and Google, etc., that's over. If you haven't realized that the internet search results are being curated and controlled via human beings and algorithms,
it's really
that
sad
suppress topics that they do not.
It was
want
nice
you to
when
read
it
about.
wasn't,
and it's so now it's harder for these, but I agree with him saying put a camera in their face and confront them. But just if you think that especially if you're using Google, I suggest looking into some other alternative search engines, because you're in a filter bubble.
I would like to suggest making flyers and putting them out. Don't be so dependent that we think that this is the only way to reach people. I know it sounds kind of crazy. How do you make a flyer and it's not for an event? We just make a flyer that's about something, that's out there, and just leave them in places. Put them in the newspapers. Take them up to KPFT.
People are interested in that, and we have done that, and it's been very effective.
And I can tell you this, that sometimes those things, they might not immediately, somebody's all of a sudden going into the topic,
something,
but it might lead them somewhere later. Because I'll tell you what, 10 years ago, a Westheimer block party right around here, somebody's outside passing out flyers, passing out stickers, and there's a sticker that I won't say what the phrase was, but it was just this phrase that I was like, okay, that sounds cool or entertaining. I don't know what. I took it home though, put it on my keyboard at home that I played music on, and it sat there for a couple of years till I decided to check out the website on the sticker, and then that led me down pretty much to where we are today. So, that sticker, even though it sat there and it didn't have the immediate impact of me questioning things, it led to some places. So, I know we got a couple callers waiting. You want to go to the song first, or you want to go to them?
let's get this caller on real quick. Okay. We got Mr. Brian.
Love these callers.
All right, Brian, what's going on?
Hello, Brian, you there? Okay, maybe we lost him. I'm going to click over this next one.
All right. Hello, caller.
Hello, caller.
Hey, man, I'm sorry. I actually called a few minutes ago, and I'm the guy that was coming through from San Marcos.
We're glad to talk to you.
And hey, man, I just want to say I got a radio show myself, and I kind of talk about the same topics you're talking about right now. Anyway, the only reason I'm even calling back, I know your listeners know this, but this is why KPFT is so important, honestly. And it's just like my small station, it's the same thing. We're saying things that people are not hearing other places. And I just want to say I'm from Houston originally, and our little community station is in many ways modeled after KPFT.
Wow.
So, we're just...
Oh, we lost him, I think.
But anyway, I just want to say thank you for saying what you're saying. And, hey, it's okay. It's not... Voting is not like a sports team. You can vote for the other team if it's a better person. So exactly. I think we've kind of lost sight of that. Anyway, thanks again for what y'all are doing.
Hey, thank you.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, hey, thank you. Hey, and if you want, please message the Freethinker Radio Facebook page. That goes out to everybody out there if you want to come on and talk about what you have going on. If you got music we need to play or an event that you think's pertinent.
Yeah, thank you for that call. And that, again, that's an example of why being on KPFT is so important to us here at Freethinker Radio, and we would love to stay here and keep working with you guys. So if you want to contribute, support, invest in shows like this, check out kpft.org.
Oh, and I'm going to take a minute to talk about this. We also have, I was given this little bit of insight that maybe you want to help our show particularly, and maybe you don't want to or don't have a lot of money to throw down. Well, there's other ways. Obviously, you can donate stock, etc., to KPFT, but you can also donate product to Freethinker Radio. Maybe you're with a record label and you want to give us tickets and or records to give out to callers or donators. We can do that directly, and any funds that are generated in that go straight to Freethinker Radio's name to KPFT. So that's something that we haven't spoken a lot about, but if you run a computer shop and you've got some extra laptops and you want to help, free thinking people be empowered, you know who to talk to. So we'll get more out on that as well.
All right, stay tuned. This is Freethinker Radio. We're going to go to some music. We'll be right back, and we hope to hear from you guys. Stay tuned.
My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
Go! people. That's kinda deceitful, cause Bush's economics were the fall of the eagle. A lobbyist is calling, so we're bombing your people. Saddam and Osama bin Laden are the bottom of the bottom, and I ain't stopping till I got them where we need to. So we applaud Obama when he promised that the problems will be gone by tomorrow, but the problems are equal. But at the top of all of this is neither of these two. Lincoln said in politics the highest offices are not the ones making laws, it's the ones making profits. Wall Street monsters, Bilderberg evil. Bush and Obama are the people they speak through. We're just caught up in following, walking into our own slaughter. American sheeple, better wake up or the wolves will eat you. Stalin, Mussolini, Nazi sequel. FEMA death camps where the police will beat you. It's for protection, nothing less than peaceful. And a one-world government is best for the people with a one-world currency injected through a needle. And there's no sense running because the government can see you. I don't believe you, your propaganda see-through. Punishment is coming, got me running to a sea pool. See-through to the top. Bush was high when he signed the Patriot Act. He took the Constitution, there's no taking it back. Tried to scare us with the Arabics, they're crazy, they're back. Turn up the threat color on the terrorist alert flag. Once they're all scared, they can't say that it's bad when I take away their rights and sign the Patriot Act. Shh. Attention sheeple, for your safety you're tapped. You had the right to privacy, we're taking it back. So you can get locked up just for taking a crap. And if you got Glocks, they can be majorly taxed. Then Obama said that's dangerous, I'm changing it back. The only change that he's had is that he's changing his facts. It's like the back, they keep taking our cash. Yeah, and it's just making them laugh. Banks fail, so we bail them out, saving their ass as they lay back, lazy and fat, attacking Iraq. Back in Afghanistan, what happened to that? This ain't capture the flag, they're getting captured and stabbed. What's that after the fact? Cause he's mastered the craft of masking the fact that he's having a chat with a G8. New World Order, better make it sell. Take the oil spill and
all right, welcome back to Freethinker Radio, 90.1 KPFT Houston. We had, what was the first one, Johnny? Reagan-era Rejects?
That was the Reagan-era Rejects, and they just put out their EP the other day. I forget what it's called. I don't have it. It might be self-titled Reagan-era Rejects. So
they've been
check
around
them
for
out.
a while, and they're still making more stuff, and it's out now, so you can get it. That's good stuff.
Cool. That second song was from a Dallas rapper, Jay Soley, if anybody wants to check that out. But
Jay Soley. How do you spell Soley?
Solli.
I do want to mention a couple of events. Our friends Such Marvelous Monsters and Western Civilization are playing at Darwin's tonight. And I did also want to mention, because you never know where to go, Tuesday, Some Kind of Nightmare and Tefales are performing over at Shoeshine Charlie's Big Top. And I got one more here. The Dia de los Muertos short film showcase with free admission. You got to like free admission to films, right? This is hosted by the Houston Latino Film Festival and Mecca over at Mecca. That's 1900 Kane Street. Goes on tomorrow from 7 to 9:30.
Lots of good stuff to
I
get
do
into.
got a couple events. Actually, that Reagan-era Rejects band is playing at White Oak tomorrow.
Ooh, nice.
So they'll be playing White Oak tomorrow. It's out. The lead singer just got married, so it's his wedding. It's his little wedding party. And
cool.
Also the Hates, old school punk band that have been around Houston forever. They're doing a video shoot at Lola's Bar tomorrow, so that should be pretty fun.
Yeah, that sounds like them and sounds like
and that's like the cheapest drinks in Houston, by the way.
Yeah, that is the truth.
Sweet. All right. Well, Micah, I got one story to get into, but I know you want to talk about some Houston things before we go too wide and broad.
Yeah, I do have a little bit here in Houston. Did you see this thing about Dwight Boykins accusing the police union of a racist tweet? Now, we've talked about the police union here a few times, and we've talked about Dwight Boykin. Now we've brought the two together, and racism. That's correct. The Houston Police Officers Union, they tweeted a parody of the 95 movie Friday, and in the shot they showed Dwight Boykins as Devo and Marty Langton, who's the fire department, I guess the union. The fire union boss. And he's saying, I got mind control over Dwight. When he say shut up, I be quiet. But when he leave, I be talking again. And they said, basically, the council member Boykin said the police union and its president, Joe Gamaldi, are implying that Boykins can't think for himself. And, that's kind of interesting. And then he says that it was a racist tweet. So I wonder why they think that he can't think for himself. And I also wonder what's kind of racist about it. Is it because, isn't everything racist in a way? I'm not really sure that I get that point. But, maybe someone will call and tell me. Or maybe you can tell me. Maybe Johnny can tell me.
I saw the headline. I gave it a moment of time, but then it's
hardly worth it.
It's sort of a non-story.
It's sort of worth it though, because according to Gamaldi, the tweet implied that Boykins had been regurgitating the talking points of the firefighters union. But isn't this interesting that the police union says that it's just the fire department, the firefighters union's talking points, not anything to do with the will of the voters, right? That passed Prop B. So I kind of only wanted to mention it briefly because it's a whole bunch of fireworks to make a slight political point that is lost in the shuffle. And this is what they seem to rather spend their time on than actually getting anything done. But, of course, Joe Gamaldi and the police union took it down right away after he was offended because they said they're not here to offend anybody. But they got your number, just in case you didn't know. So, yeah, that was a little thing to get into. Houston police, I thought this was interesting. They unveil a new crime lab after the rape kit lawsuits. You may remember this, Derrick. We talked about it incessantly.
They've been historically backlogged on rape kit actually clearing them and
I never forgot the numbers of just, mismanaged and corrupted cases over it. They say this new 83,000 square foot space will serve as a model for the rest of the U.S., so we'll see what's going on with all that. In January 2018, the lab fired an analyst who had shredded case notes from a homicide investigation. Goodbye to the notes. Wow. In April 27, audit showed mistakes by a crime scene investigator in 65 cases, including 26 homicides, which hindered those prosecutions. And a year prior, investigators mistakenly contaminated evidence in 3 cases. After a fatal January drug raid by Houston police narcotics officers, crime scene technicians left pieces of evidence behind at the small home in Pecan Park. So there you got your little total raid getting mixed in with that too. Nevertheless, police and criminal justice reform supporters said they believe the new lab will increase the police's confidence in its independence and overall mission.
Things that make you go,
I wonder if that means they'll be able to tell a better story. Got more pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, you were talking to me a moment ago about how in kind of the evolution of the latest Tuttle information, HPD is they're really proud of their new SWAT unit and how they're claiming all the future no-knock raids will be handled through this really specific SWAT unit,
and it's going to be better because it's streamlined. You'll have the same officers rather than diverse officers from different groups.
Yeah, because they said sometimes in a no-knock raid, like say if officers like, I'm getting a no-knock warrant, he might pull from this group and this group and this group, and you end up with different people from different places. Instead of now they're saying it's just going to be one group, one elite group that runs operations like this, and it won't be different people. So then that leads us to say, well, we have to make sure, I guess, if we're going to stick to that system, that those people are trustworthy and that there's some kind of accountability, because it doesn't really, Aceveto's thing doesn't really address the whole root of it, which was the fact that the officers lied about false information. That you could still have 5 people in a SWAT unit and they could lie. I mean,
just because they've got special weapons doesn't clear them from the human aspect of being a liar. Or, who knows why that officer did that anyway. I mean, he could have been on the take. Maybe this was a hit. Well, probably easier to do a hit on the take like that as a cop than it is to actually have to kill someone.
Hopefully we'll get to the truth of it.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I guess, we'll hear more when the case finally goes to court. So many things you hear that they're going to do a thorough investigation of, and at least from our media, relying on the media doesn't let me know that they've done a thorough investigation. I mean, it was just a little while ago they hit that man on Wayside and said they were going to do a thorough investigation. He was killed. I haven't heard anything back. I've Googled the man. I have not found any new news. I guess that means the thorough investigation was that the guy on the bicycle crossing at the intersection that was hit by the cop car was in the wrong. So, I'm not sure what happens about this sort of stuff, but at least when you just leave it in the mainstream media's hands. And that's a weird thing, because I think that's part of the problem, right? We've sat back and assumed that the media was just this objective reporting institution, and then we got to the point where we're like, oh no, it's just all corrupt. So we went from one extreme to another without much room in the in-between.
Yeah, and these days it's hard to to not understand why people would feel that everything is corrupt. We're going to get into some of those stories. I have a scary Halloween story in a few moments, but I'll wait till I know, Micah, you got some more.
I've gotten out of Houston. I've got a couple of.
Should I go to my scary story?
Yeah, I'm
first?
ready for some.
I know you got scary
story.
economic
I'm ready
things.
to be spooked.
Okay,
Yeah,
this is our Halloween episode essentially, first day of November. Unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, because this is a reality check, hopefully for some people, these stories are based in fact and not based about some
made up stuff,
scary made up stuff that you scare yourself just to have some fun.
No, this is that real.
This
scary.
is that real scary stuff that makes you rethink a lot of things. And one of them has to do with the case of Jeffrey Epstein that we've been following for years now. Recap in case anybody hasn't heard that name first. Jeffrey Epstein, billionaire, convicted pedophile, connected to everyone from Donald Trump, Bill and Hillary Clinton, people on the Democrats, Republicans, Hollywood, scientists, lots of powerful people in the establishment, media people as well. Of course, he was arrested earlier this summer and then allegedly committed suicide while in prison in August as he was awaiting to go to trial. The trial, which wouldn't have happened until 2020 anyways. More than 40 and some say in the hundreds of victims of Jeffrey Epstein as far back as the 1990s, 2000s. And when he was originally charged with this in 2008, he got away with what some call the sweetheart deal, where Trump's former labor secretary, Alexander Acosta, who had to resign as a result of some of this pushback against Epstein, helped him get a sweetheart deal that allowed him, instead of going to prison, for a long time for molesting and for violating these children, dozens and dozens of children, he was sentenced to 18 months in the county jail where he had his own private room. And since we've learned the gates were never closed, he could walk in and out as he pleased. They brought him a big flat screen TV in there for him. They brought him internet access. He was still allowed to see people, including, as according to some of the reports, teenage girls, teenagers.
Like 19, right?
17, 16, maybe.
In jail?
While he was allegedly in jail. But then the other thing is, the real kicker on that original case in 2008 is he was allowed to leave for 18 hours a day and come back and sleep in that cell that it was opened and where he...
Hey, sign me up for that.
For 6 hours a day. And that was...
I got shelter for 6 hours a day. I can do whatever I want in the other 18.
And he got to go to his office for the other 18 where he still received visitors.
You know what he was doing in that office.
The other thing is the guards, because this is in Palm Beach County.
They were on his payroll. On
his payroll, plus they're getting taxpayers are funding the whole thing, or footing the whole bill of the whole thing. So that was, people were outraged, of course. The stories made headlines over the last 10 years, but just barely. But this summer it finally broke. And then yesterday, or maybe 2 days now, we had Michael Baden, who is a forensic pathologist who's been around for decades. He worked on the OJ case. He worked on JFK, RFK, some other high-profile cases. He was hired by Epstein's brother, Mark, who to examine Epstein's body and to see if there was any kind of foul play, because I'll say this, all of a sudden people from right to left, mainstream, independent, all became conspiracy theorists when Jeffrey Epstein died, because I don't think very many people believe this idea that this guy who had already been attempted to make one suicide attempt and then weeks later was left alone. Guards happened to be off duty. The people that were on duty weren't even really guards. They were janitors because they were overworked. All these silly things. Everything that could have gone wrong.
If you can open the door yourself, do you really need a guard?
Well, this is the second time when he got arrested this summer, which was in one of the most maximum security prisons, which is renowned for having like rats and roaches and just dirty and like. So the story is, well, this guy who's used to living a lavish lifestyle just couldn't make it, and he knew he was going to go down, so he killed himself. But this jail is built so that people can't kill themselves, especially where he was at in the SHU unit. They said he got like a blanket, which again, these blankets are made to tear easy for this purpose, and tied it around the top of the bunk and like jumped down, and then that snapped his neck. And so it's this somersault story of doing this. But Michael Baden, again, forensic pathologist hired by Epstein's brother, said 2 days ago on news, on the mainstream news, that his report is showing that that Epstein broke 2 different bones in his neck and that are consistent with homicide, and that he said, and of his 50 years of doing forensic pathology, he's never seen a suicide look like this, and that he thinks that it's definitely indicative of a homicide. So that, there's a nice scary story for you, because what does that mean when you start to consider the implications of this? Again, a high profile person with connections to politicians, with connection to all kinds of people in positions of power over the last 20, 30, 40 years, gets off with a sweetheart deal.
And who walked into a maximum security prison and would be able to commit a homicide without,
exactly.
help all the way? Who's unlocking all the doors for that person?
And then the guards were off duty, and then this was going, so there's a lot of things that went wrong. And even
how are you going to have deniability if you had a guard on duty?
Well, that guard happened to take a long lunch and wasn't there. That's the thing. Oh, and the cameras outside of the cell.
That sandwich was more important.
Those cameras outside the cell. Those
doesn't make you
either.
guilty though.
Those cameras just happen not to be
just because I
working
took
that
a
day.
long lunch and that sandwich was more important. Can't find him guilty.
So and also I will add to this. Since then, just a couple of days ago, independent
why do you think
journalists,
they had to get him isolated and put in like that? I mean, really, they do. If they're going to shut anybody up, they have to, right? Or do they disappear them? Or
well, this is what I'm saying: is the cameras in the hallway that face his jail cell, they didn't work. They said, they malfunctioned or something. Everybody was off duty. We didn't have all these guards. All these things went wrong, right?
But they have the body, unlike Osama.
Oh, and then when they showed the body, though, I don't know how many times I've ever seen them literally put a body on display, because they made sure that his body bag was unzipped so you could see his face as they slid him out, almost as if they wanted to make sure people see the body to say, hey, here's your proof or whatever.
He's really dead.
Whatever, we'll see. But obviously people still have questions. I will say this, though, just another brief development, then I want to move to my last scary story. 3 days ago, last week, Luke Rudkowski, which is an independent media journalist at We Are Change, him and another YouTuber, they actually visited Jeffrey Epstein's island, and they're probably the first people other than the FBI to be, or people who are being abused, unfortunately, to be on the island. And they weren't able to visit the entire island, but if you go search on YouTube, you'll see, or even mainstream's kind of reporting on it, these people stormed the island and were running around checking. There was all kinds of, it's interesting. Just go check it out. So my point is, the Epstein story still isn't over, and that's scary when you realize the implications of that. Whether this guy's sitting on a beach sipping a margarita somewhere, or he was killed, well, then somebody helped that happen. Who knows? But we don't know this truth, and but it's all wrapped up in a nice bow now. He's dead. All the cases have been dropped. Everything's gone.
Where would that end up, though? Is like is there just no investigation to look into that, or could you go outside of the government to have another investigation, or what?
Well, like hire a private investigator or something. I mean,
or
you'd
like
have
a second opinion to convict some kind of foul play, because like you would think, like in any other case, if someone killed themselves and then evidence came out, they'd reopen it.
I imagine that in the decades to come, there will be file releases, much like my final scary story. We'll probably see in 30 years from now, the FBI or somebody's going to do a document dump. Here's the Epstein files we have, because just last Friday, as we sit here today, and you know what, Micah, you know this, news stories that break on Friday or document dumps that happen on Friday are meant to be buried. Those are times when nobody's really paying attention to the news. They're ready for the weekend. And when the government drops something on a Friday or right before a holiday, they know, because most people aren't going to be listening. Well, last Friday on the FBI's official Twitter account for The Vault, which is the website where you can go see all the FBI's declassified documents on all kinds of things, they posted, all it said was, the Finders file. And for those who've never heard of this, we don't have time to get into it.
Creepy.
But now we're getting real creepy. This is, I recommend, I put a documentary together earlier this year. It's called Who Will Find What the Finders Hide, if you want to get a full lowdown on this.
No one.
But this document dump was 325 pages, and most of it is heavily redacted, but it comes from the FBI.
Hey, it's shorter than the Patriot Act.
And it shows the FBI's files on this group called the Finders. Brief summary version, 1987, 2 men, well-dressed men, get arrested with 6 children in Tallahassee, Florida. It sets off an investigation in D.C. and Florida and Virginia, all around the country, really all around the world. Interpol got involved, Customs got involved. And there was allegations that these men were part of a group called the Finders that was trafficking children, potentially involved in intelligence like the CIA. And it made headlines. I mean, you can go find mainstream news, Washington Post, New York Times talking about this. Then within a week, they said, whoops, it was all a mistake. There's nothing to see here. The men were released. The children were let go, apparently, to their parents. And the whole thing was said it was blown out of water. 7 years later, 1993, the Department of Justice decides to investigate. Are there truth to these claims that the CIA shut down the investigation? Because there was 2 different congressmen, Tom Lewis and Charlie Rose, at the time, who were calling for an investigation, saying there's evidence here, we need to look into this. So the DOJ does their own investigation. The FBI gets involved, and after a couple of months or so, they conclude it and say, no, there's nothing here. We investigate ourselves, nothing to see. And that's it. It goes down 1993. 2018, I was traveling. I happened to track down a former member of the Finders, and not just any member, but the right-hand man, one of the right-hand man of the founder, who is himself a very mysterious man named Marion Petty, who has a history of intelligence connections. And all of this is fact. If this is sounding crazy, because this is part of our Halloween scary stories, these are facts. And as I said, you can go look at the FBI documents. I interviewed one of the members of the Finders. I put together this documentary, and I was able to pretty safely and confidently conclude, based on the available evidence, that there was definitely a cover-up. Now, with this new FBI document, and this, I say this with a straight face and with all the documentation to back it up, the FBI file has the Washington Metropolitan Police Department's files that have never before been released. And there's a summary by their investigator that says clearly that the Finders organization was a front for the CIA, that the CIA was using them to spread disinformation, and that a splinter group of the finders broke off and ended up being involved in child abuse. And it said they should be tracking them, they should keep their eye on them, because they do not believe that they broke up as they claim to have broken up, that it's part of their master plan to splinter off and to rename and go off in all these different areas. And a lot of these people are still alive. You can find them on the internet listed as journalists around the world. That was kind of their cover. They claim to be journalists, just traveling the world. And it's scary, creepy stuff. But again, the accusations do include, and the FBI files themselves say, oh, there was cages on their Virginia property where they kept the children. There was tunnels underneath some of their properties, different things that are really, really creepy. And again, this is your Halloween story. So I hope you'll take this seriously, because what I just said is 100% fact. Go look up the FBI Vault on Twitter. Just search the Finders FBI. It's in the news for the moment, but it's been around. It's been going on for 30 years. This story's been out there. And people in the FBI, people in the CIA, people in the FCIA, the Foreign Counterintelligence Agency, covered it up. And that's a fact.
In your normal, everyday scary news, we got just not quite that scary as those last two ones. The police blew up an innocent man's house in search of an armed shoplifter in Colorado.
That is scary, though.
And guess what?
Well,
Just now,
they blew it up?
Yep. It looks like, a compound or something now. Like, too bad, the court says. You're just out of luck and out of money. The city did refuse to compensate the Lech family for their losses, but offered $5,000 in temple rental assistance and, help with the insurance deductible. So they went to court and all this stuff, and it just turned out that, the court says, too bad.
That's unreal. That's kind of like when it's like that classic superhero who just destroys the city, and then you wonder what happens afterwards. But in real life, there's people that now don't have a house because a cop wanted to blow up a building.
Yeah, it turns out that 19-hour standoff with a guy who went to another building. It's kind of crazy, and it turns out that the lawyers. How do I put this? Yeah. The lawyers tried to reference an older case in which the Supreme Court sided with a woman whose house was damaged by police with tear gas. They sought to apprehend the suspect. In the 1980 Houston case, the Texas Supreme Court sided with a couple whose home was badly damaged. In that case, the Texas court turned up its nose at the 10th Circuit and did not allow them to label it eminent domain. Citizens aren't entitled to compensation if the police destroy their property as a matter of business.
Sorry,
crazy.
Bubs. Just business.
Kind of crazy. So don't get in the way of business. Speaking of business, I got a couple of quick headlines, and I know we're out of here today. Mortgage rates increase again, even though the Fed just cut interest rates. Oh, yeah, that's right. And meanwhile, the Treasury Department's trying to issue bonds on the slate, as if you won't notice that they're being put out there. And it's, how do I put this part? The Treasury Department job could become tougher in the next few months because people are aware of these bond issues, and the Treasury Department's very concerned because of the volatile economic situation of not sending waves through the money markets. But I don't expect that to really be the case because just Wednesday, the quarterly refund statement, the last major change to refunding plans came a year ago, and nothing's changing. The Treasury and the Fed are well within their rights to pursue their aims without considering the impact on other markets. So it's kind of frightening, and so it looks like these two different forces are going to be doing things to the economy, and we have to figure out what's going on. Fed cuts rates again to boost the slowing economy all over the place. So
we're going to be out of here for the day, folks. We appreciate you so much. This is Freethinker Radio. We're here every Friday from 3 to 4. We're on Mondays from
Keystone's leaking 9,000 barrels of oil.
Yeah, we're going to have to get into that.
Yep.
Lots of stuff to cover. 4 to 6 on Mondays if you want to get into it. And find us on Facebook at Freethinker Radio or at thehoustonfreethinkers.com. We're out of here for the day. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Peace.